currently the main module of our application main.js contains quite a bit of logic, but it is generally considered a good practice to keep the main module clean. So I prefer to move these two functions, load state and save state, into a separate module, since they are related to synchronization of the app state with the local storage. So we're going to move these two functions into storage.js. And this way, our main module will only contain this function called load state in order to load the state from the local storage, as well as registration of this listener, because we need to detect when tab with our application will become active to load the state from local storage, or inactive to save the state into the local storage. So we're gonna leave this listener registration in this module along with app initialization. And now let's move these two functions, load state and save state, into storage.js. So we'll start with save state function. Let's cut it from here and move it into storage.js. So since this module already contains another save function, we're gonna have to combine these two save functions into one. If before we were passing the data that we need to store in the local storage as the parameter into save function, but now we're going to specify this data explicitly without passing it from outside. So in here, instead of destructuring the data, we're gonna specify directly the data we need to store, which is timeline items array as well as activities array. And now there is no need to pass any parameters into this save function. And by the way, we don't need to manually stringify current date object by using method toDateString before storing it in local storage. So let's remove this function call. So now we can safely remove the first function save state, since this is no longer used. And now let's move up and import all necessary data in this module. So since we are explicitly referencing array of timeline items as well as array of activities in this module in order to store both of these arrays in local storage, let's write down and import statements for both of these arrays in here. So this way we can clearly see what kind of data gets stored in the local storage by looking at this save state function. And now let's do similar refactoring to load state function. And now let's follow the same procedure to combine these two load state functions into one. I'm gonna move the implementation of the load function directly into load state function, so we don't need to call this load function anymore. Before proceeding, let's remove the implementation of the first load function. And in here, when we are getting the state from the local storage, since this state will be in the stringified form, let's call this variable serialized state. And later, when we're gonna parse this state to turn it into JavaScript object, we're gonna then save parsed state into the state variable, like so. So let's see what else we need to do in this module. Oh, by the way, isToday function has to be imported right here. And now we also have to export load state function, since we're gonna reference it from our main module. And now if we go back to main.js, we're gonna see several unused imports. So let's remove all of these unused imports and instead import only two functions, load state as well as save state, from the module storage. And as we can see, the main module is much cleaner now. It only loads the state of the application from local storage on the initial page load, and also it registers listener for the event visibility change to detect when tab with our app will be active or inactive in order to load state from local storage or save it back to local storage before actually browser tab with our application will be inactive. So now everything related to syncing the app state with the local storage is grouped into a separate module storage.js, and in here we can easily see what kind of data we're loading from the local storage, as well as what data we are saving. Because now this whole logic is grouped in one module. Before finishing this lesson, let's see if after page refresh, our app state will be restored. So let's start tracking the time, and if after the page refresh this 4-second will still be displayed, this means that our app state was successfully restored from the local storage. As we can see, everything is working,